Today, we're digging into a really cool question. Can we take the waste from our cities and, believe it or not, turn it into the clothes on our backs? We're going to break down this incredible experiment that tried to do just that. Let's dive in. So, to get this, you got to understand there are these two massive problems that don't seem connected at all. First, you've got our cities, right? They're just churning out mountains of organic waste. Then, way out in the country, you have our farms, and they are starving for nutrients to make the soil healthy enough to grow our food and fiber. And that's where this brilliant idea comes in. What if you could take problem A and use it to solve problem B? What if we could take all that city waste, transform it into this amazing nutrient-rich compost, and then use that to feed our farms? Could one problem actually be the solution to the other? It's a pretty cool thought, right? Okay, so at first glance, this seems obvious, right? Compost is good for soil. But you have to put yourself in a farmer's shoes. We're talking about commercial farming here. Their entire livelihood depends on getting a reliable harvest year after year. They can't just try something new and, cross their fingers. They need proof. And yeah, that's the big hurdle. It's a business decision. For a farmer to completely change how they do things, to spend the time and the money hauling and spreading tons of compost, they have to know it's going to work. They need to see the cold, hard data that says, yes, this is worth it. And that need for proof? Well, that's exactly what led to the Great Cotton Experiment. This wasn't just some backyard garden test. This was a full-blown scientific demonstration on a real farm designed to prove once and for all if this city waste compost idea actually worked. So let's set the scene. We're going back to 1994, 1995. The location? Torrigiani Farm, out in California's Lost Hills Valley. They put the compost down in December, got the cotton seeds in the ground by April, and then spent the whole summer measuring everything before the big harvest in November. Okay, quick sidebar, because you might be wondering what was actually in this compost. It was basically two things. First, regular old yard waste, and the second, something called biosolids. Now, that's just the organic stuff that's left over from wastewater treatment plants. It's packed with nutrients, and it's all carefully treated to be super safe and really effective for farming. And they did this right. This was a proper scientific experiment. They took this massive 72-acre field and carved it up into 9 different plots. The key was they tested 3 different doses of compost, but everything else, the planting, the watering, all of it was kept exactly the same. That way they knew any differences they saw were because of the compost. So here's how they set it up to make sure it was a fair test. You can see they had 3 groups. Group 1 got 0 compost, that's your baseline, your control group. Group 2 got a low dose of 3 dry tons per acre. And Group 3 got the high dose, which was double that, at 6 dry tons. Having these 3 distinct groups meant they could do a perfect side-by-side comparison. All right, so the experiment is underway. The compost is in the soil, the seeds are planted. The big question was, would the cotton plants even care? Would this make any difference at all? Well, the answer turned out to be a huge, resounding yes. I mean, right away, you could just see the difference. The plants that got the compost were just taller. The ones with the low dose shot up about 12.5%, and the high dose plants grew almost 14% taller. It makes sense, right? The compost just makes the soil better so the roots can really stretch out and soak up all those good nutrients. And it wasn't just about getting taller. The plants were also way fuller, bushier. On those high-dose plots, the cotton plants grew nearly 24% more leaves. And more leaves are like having more solar panels on a house. It means more energy from the sun, which is basically the fuel that drives all plant growth. Okay, but check this out. This next part, straight from the study, is where things get really wild. For a cotton plant, the flower is what eventually becomes the little puffball of cotton. And get this, the plots that got the heavy dose of compost produced 3 times as many flowers as the control plots. Not 30% more, 300% more. That is just a staggering difference. So, okay, we've got taller plants, more leaves, a crazy amount of flowers. These are all amazing signs. But let's go back to our farmer. For them, at the end of the day, there's only one number that really truly matters. How much cotton did you actually get? This is the moment of truth, right? Did all those extra leaves and flowers actually lead to more cotton in the basket? Did this whole experiment pay off where it really counts? Oh yeah, big time. The final number is just incredible. The plots with the high dose of compost yielded 37.2% more cotton. almost 40% more product just from adding compost. And look at the whole picture here. Even the low dose gave them a nearly 25% boost in their harvest. The high dose pushed it all the way past 37%. This is the kind of cold, hard data we were talking about earlier. This is the proof a farmer needs. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end there. The good news just kept on coming. The researchers found another huge benefit, and this one was hiding in the soil itself. It turns out the soil with compost was way better at holding water. Think of it like this. The organic stuff in the compost basically turned the soil into a giant sponge. 2 weeks after a heavy watering, the high-dose plots had held on to almost 7% more moisture than the regular soil. That's a huge deal. So why does that matter so much? Well, if you're farming somewhere like California, where water is like gold, that little bit of extra water stored in the soil can literally be the difference between a successful harvest and losing your entire crop. So let's just wrap this all up. The big takeaway here is that this was a total win-win situation. No question. Using compost from city waste gave them bigger, healthier plants, a much bigger harvest, and it made the soil better at handling drought. It's a win-win-win. And that brings us to the big final question. This study, all this clear, amazing proof, it's not new. This was done back in 1994. It laid out a perfect roadmap for how to connect our cities and our farms in a way that helps everyone. So the question I want to leave you with is, if we've known this works for decades, what's holding us back from doing this everywhere, today?